Corporates have benefited tremendously from the government's timely decision to waive various tax. Okay, this is our first question. Do you think there is an error? The same sentence is segregated below as parts, right? A, B, C, D, and then we have E. According to you, where do you think the error is? Okay, so it's between, I have a lot of A, B, and D. Okay, majority D. So let's quickly look at this. Okay, corporates have benefited tremendously. So in terms of part A, I'm trying to figure out, right? The subject is corporates, which is a plural subject, and then I have, which is also a plural verb. So in terms of subject verb agreement, I don't see any issue there. Corporates have benefited matlab present perfect tense, right? So the benefit, the action of that benefit started sometime in the past and it is continuing up till now, meaning they are still benefiting, right? So corporates have benefited tremendously. So the whole part A seems fine. Yeah, is that right? I don't think so. Do you feel necessary for it to have a double T? Is that what you're saying? If that is the case, if you feel that there should be a double T in benefited, please understand that both are acceptable, right? So don't worry about that, right? Mostly it is to do with either British or American way of spelling stuff, but both are accepted. Okay, so that which leaves us with, hey, there's nothing wrong with part A. Let's move on. So corporates have benefited tremendously from what? From the government's timely decision. And then somebody said part C as well. Did I see a C? Okay, I didn't see a C. So we're moving on. So they have benefited from what? The government's what? Timely decision. So timely as an adverb is modifying the noun decision. That is also fine. Government's timely decision to do what? To waive various, and then I have tax, right? So tremendously. Okay, Vijay comes back and saying in part A, boss, let's change tremendously to tremendous. Why? Because tremendously is an adverb that modifies the verb benefited. That's also fine, right? An adverb modifying. So how have they benefited? Tremendously, right? It answers the question how. So the adverb tremendously also is correct in part A. I don't have to make any changes. It's like same like this one, right? Timely decision. In fact, timely is an adjective here, I would say, right? Modifying the noun decision. A timely decision to do what? To waive what? Various. So for me the clue is obviously those who came back and said part D. Yes, Jaya Murli, you would be correct, right? Because of this clue word various, which means we're talking about more than one component here. Which means I can't have a singular noun number which is tax. I need to change that to a plural noun number, right? So what is a plural noun number? Taxes. That's it. That's where my error is in part D. Right? Corporates have benefited tremendously from the government's timely decision to waive various taxes. So that's where our error is. The clue word being various, telling us, boss, we're talking about a plural noun number and not just a singular noun number. So this is an error pertaining to noun numbers, right? Very simple error, not a difficult error at all. In fact, if you ask me, it's just like a prepositional error, or a tense error, though those might be a little complicated, because if you are not too thorough with your basic grammar pertaining to prepositions or tenses, you might end up getting confused again. But what I'm trying to say is, these are errors that we are familiar with. This is not a new kind of an error. We know this error, noun number errors, right? So that's, yeah. So such a minor thing, yeah, overlooked. I'm guessing people have overlooked it, just like, what do I say? Like a spelling error, right? With an apostrophe S will come into the picture when there is some possessive meaning, right? Government's something. So the timely decision belonged to the government. In that context, you're saying, what's the difference between government and government with an S? This just brings a possessive meaning, right? Whose timely decision was it? The government's timely decision. That's it. Okay, are you following? So that's about it. The noun number error is in part D, just so we know. The decision of the JSW Group to go in for joint venture to acquire the stressed assets is a marked change in its, I think there's a word missing here, which I will add here for your benefit, in its strategy, as it has always acquired asset on its own. Okay, this is the section. To go in means what? Can I look at it as a phrasal verb? Yeah. So to go in for means what? Have you heard people say, hey, why don't you go in for, this particular option? So what is the meaning of go in for? Have you heard people use that expression? See, for example, if I say, hey, there is a competition happening, right, in our colony. Why don't you go in for that? Meaning, why don't you enroll for that, right? So yeah, to enter, right? So usually it's either for an activity or some sort of a campaign that's running or whatever it is. Why don't you volunteer? Why don't you go in for that? Why don't you sign up for that? That's what it means, right? Take part. So in the context, what it's saying is the decision of the JSW group to go in for joint venture. So to take part in that joint venture. So here go in for is bringing the meaning of to take part, to enter the joint venture. Right? Is anything wrong with part A? Not really, right? The decision of who? The decision belongs to JSW group. So of as a preposition is fine there. To go in for, we just saw the phrase, right? For what? Joint venture. That is also fine. So there's nothing wrong with part A. Let's move on. The decision of the JSW group to go in for joint venture. To do what? To acquire the stressed assets. That's also is a marked change. Again, marked is an adjective describing the change. That's also fine. Marked change in what? In its strategy. It's the pronoun there, right? Is again correct possessive pronoun. Whose strategy? JSW group strategy, right? So the decision of the JSW group to go in for joint venture to acquire the stressed assets is a marked change in its strategy as it has always acquired asset on its. That's where our error is, right? Very obvious. When you read it only you know. What have you missed here? On its own. Not owned, no? It should be on its own. So basically what they're saying is, instead of doing something on their own, what the context is suggesting is, why don't you take part? Why don't you participate? Why don't you enter this joint venture? Instead of doing it on your own, joint venture matlab, join hands with somebody else and do this. What? To acquire the stressed assets. Acquire the stressed assets, not on your own, but with the joint venture. Go in for the joint venture. That's what the context is saying, right? To go in for the joint venture is your clue. You can even change that, right? Even if you change asset to assets in the part D, it's still part D which has the error. But the very obvious error is on its own. And the clue for us in the context is, go in for joint venture, boss. Don't do things on your own. That's what it means, right? So we know this. It's not like we don't know this. Yeah? So the error again is in part D. Right? On its own, not on its owned. This is a pretty familiar phrase, I'm sure. Right? You've heard people do this, I don't want you to do things on your own. Right? This person has been trying to prepare for the exam, and he's made so many attempts, especially for SBI PO, on his own, but he hasn't seen any positive results. So maybe he should join Talent Sprint and make use of the strategies and especially take advantage of the 21-day preparation marathon. Marathon preparation, and then see how it's going to benefit him. Are you following? I'm just giving random examples.